Hi everyone, and for week 20 of my No Buy year, I wanted to talk about a time where I felt the emotional urge to buy and I didn't buy anything. Hey, so my name is Alexa and this is my No Buy year, and I can't believe we're already in week 20 of the year. It's crazy how time is simultaneously flying by, but it also feels kind of right that summer is approaching. Anyway, I wanted to talk through some of the scenarios that happened recently where I would formally have been triggered to buy stuff. And in fact, as recently as April, I was triggered to buy stuff by similar experiences. So back in April, I failed my no buy, and I had some experiences leading up to that kind of mirrored what recently happened, or more recently happened. And one of those things was having negative emotional experience. So back then there was a little musical story time where I got the ick because of something that happened. You can go back to that video if you want to hear the full story, but I had something similar happen more recently. So at the very, very, very end of April, on April 27th, I had another close call as far as breaking my no buy, or the feelings I had when I broke it last time. So here's what happened. Again, it's a kind of work-related story. I was at work and it was kind of a frustrating day. You know, everybody has days at work where things aren't really feeling quite right. You're kind of in a negative mood. Maybe something bad happens to one of your friends, which is what happened to me. Things with coworkers, you know, human relations and all that can get a little prickly sometimes. So my friend had something negative happen to her, and I kind of fell into the trap of trying to support her by joining in the negativity. And this, you know, it's on me. I'm not blaming anybody else for my behavior. And then I also chose to vent some of my frustrations that I sometimes have about my job as well. And while venting is not necessarily a bad thing, the part that really gave me the ick about it internally is that we were in a coffee shop kind of close to the venue we were playing. And at the end of our venting session, I noticed another person who I work with sitting in the coffee shop, probably close enough to overhear everything that we, and especially me, had been saying. And it was just another life lesson of, if I wouldn't say something to somebody's face in the way that I'm saying it right there, I probably don't need to be saying it out loud at all. And I, in principle, just don't like saying negative things about people. I already have learned this lesson a few times in my life, and so I've kind of calibrated the negative things that I say to not be personal and not be judgmental. And indeed, I don't actually experience them this way, right? I actually really like everybody I work with. And the horror of anybody actually seeing this video, hopefully nobody I work with is actually watching this, but again, I'm going to try to be more selective and careful in the way I say things so that if somebody were watching, they would understand, and I could say anything to somebody's face and I wouldn't have to explain it or justify. But on that day, I wasn't being so careful, and I said some things in a way that could appear bad or negative or judgmental that I didn't mean that way. And I honestly don't feel that way in my heart. So I left that conversation feeling really, really icky and, you know, having that feeling of, you know, it's almost like when you're a kid and you know you've done something wrong and you're lying about it and you're in trouble, but you don't know how to get out of it. And you just kind of, it's just the worst feeling, isn't it? Comment down below if you can relate. I could really use some relatability in that. I'm not a terrible human being. I think, you know, we're all terrible human beings sometimes. It's just the nature of being human beings. But gosh, when you do something like that you are not proud of, it's just such an icky feeling. Anyway, so that's where I was at, and I had been spouting all this negativity that really doesn't line up with my true values, my true actual love of my job, and the knowledge that I'm so privileged and lucky to have a job that I have that doesn't really feel like work. It's honestly amazing. And I'm ashamed actually even talking about it now that I even said some of the things that I said. And also at this point, so I mentioned that this occurred on April 27th. I journaled about it, which is how I know. I still had the remnants of a wish list because I was still working through. I know I made a video about how I'm not keeping a wish list anymore, and that might have even come out like 2 weeks ago now. But again, I'm processing these things after the fact. So I still had remnants of a wish list at that time. So therefore I had some things that were sitting there waiting for me to possibly slip up and buy them again, which is what happened the first time. So in other words, it was a very precarious place to be. But I think some things that had also recently happened had helped reshape my perspectives enough that I didn't slip up. And now, where I'm sitting today, I am not in as much danger of slipping up, I feel like, for the rest of the year. I don't feel like there's anything I could see and want so much that I would break my no by now. And I'm going to talk through the perspective shifts that happened around the time of April 27th, just because I have had time to process those and maybe see how they've applied to my life so far. So on April 26th, the day before this, there were tornado warnings for my area. And actually, some of the houses that got hit in the path of the tornado are totally obliterated and destroyed. And the kicker is that the path of the tornado was a few streets from where I live. So literally, a matter of a few miles. It could have been my house. It could have been all of my stuff. And the thought of my house being totally ripped off the foundations or whatever and not having anything left is a humbling thought. And it's not just thinking about it, because this is the reality for real people in my area. I don't know anybody who was personally affected, but the fact that it was so close makes it a lot easier to imagine how it would be if it happened to me. And, what are those people doing? What were those people doing right after? I mean, their houses certainly aren't rebuilt right now. Where did they sleep? Could they still use their basements? How did they cook? There's so many questions of practical living, and it's obviously losing all of their material possessions kind of is not even the main concern in the immediate future of just needing a place for shelter, needing a place to cook food. Hopefully their cars are okay so they can still drive their kids to school or go to work or whatever they're doing. This perspective shift kind of hit me at the right time to, it sounds so trivial, right? Hit me at the right time to not buy anything on my wish list. Like, just the juxtaposition of that. Some people lost their house and everything they owned. And here I am agonizing over buying a watch or buying a pair of headphones or buying a shirt, whatever it is. It's so stupid, right? When you look at it that way. And it could all be gone in a moment. A tornado could come through and pick up your whole house, and then you spent that money and wasted that time looking for all that stuff for nothing, right? And I think that really helped me in a way, just to see, we know the reality, right? We know that things like this happen. We're cognitively aware by the time we reach adulthood that bad things happen to people. There's earthquakes, there's fires, there's natural disasters of all kinds. And we don't necessarily use that knowledge to inform our feelings and behavior. And okay, it's not necessarily healthy to focus on that all the time because, there's anxiety issues, and it's not positive to live in fear or focus on negative things, focus on things that probably won't happen, hyperfixating on negative events, like all of that's not good. But I do think we can use these moments or this awareness to make our lives richer and focus on the right things. The other kind of aspect of this, so there's the natural disasters and losing all your material possessions, but I have had a couple of personal, I won't say health scares, because I'm going to be honest, I've become a little bit of a health hypochondriac since I had my last baby. I think maybe the hormone fluctuations have caused some things to happen in my body that I'm not really used to, and I have been hyperfixating on like little details and like imagining worst case scenarios. So a lot of it's on me. But I did go to the doctor a few times. I had an annual physical. I had a heart echocardiogram because I was concerned about some of the symptoms I was experiencing. Long story short, I really just think it's hormonal heartburn that I've never had before, and that just kind of felt more alarming than it actually was. And then, just other random symptoms that I think are just side effects of maybe the hormone fluctuations. But long story short is that the thought of possibly having something serious that limited the length of my life, or the thought of having something that severely cut short my life, my time here, also was a perspective shift. So if I only had 5 years left, how do I want to spend those last 5 years? If I only had 1 year left, how would I want to spend that year? And I know, when you think of having very limited time, some of our first thoughts might be, oh, we're going to splash out and go to Europe and do a no expenses spared vacation and all that kind of stuff. But, thinking of it more realistically, and this is something that the productivity YouTuber, I think, Ali Abdaal, journals about as well. He had it as a journal prompt of like, what if your life ended in 5 years or 10 years? How would you spend those 5 or 10 years if that's all you thought you had left? And that could be a helpful perspective shift that's maybe a little more realistic, because you're not going to go on an no expense spared vacation if you still have 5 or 10 years, right? But you will be much more careful and conscious about how you spend those days, so that each day has value and moves you closer towards the things you want to go towards, your goals or your passions or your values, and take you away from the vices and the habits and things that make you feel icky inside. So it also strengthened my resolve to be more careful about how I talk as well in that aspect. Be more of a person who can stand behind everything that I transmit to the public, to my friends, out to the world, and not revel in moments of ickiness because of what I have done, because of what I have said. And so the time that I used to spend shopping, browsing, wanting, buying things, now seems more and more of a waste to me when I look at it that way. And I don't want to make this video all focused on the doom and gloom and all that, right? This is kind of supposed to be a success story of when I experienced all these triggers to buy something and I didn't. So, yay for that, moving forward in my path. And I don't advocate thinking of natural disasters and health emergencies to stop you from buying stuff. Like, I don't really think that that's a productive action item. It just happened that way for me, where these things kind of had an effect on my life in the more immediate sense, and it reshaped my perspective and values. So I don't know, maybe more positive examples of this would be reading literature that included, disasters and mortality. I don't know. I'll leave that up to you to think about. Maybe there are other things that have shifted your perspective in your life, that have helped you reshape your values and actually act on the values you want to cultivate and step away from the values that you want to let go of. Let me know in the comments if that's the case for you, because I'm always keen to add another point of view and somebody else's experience to my own. I like to think that an element of maturity and wisdom is being able to take advice and take things from the experiences of others without having to go through them yourself. So share away if you have any tips, any experiences, any advice, and I will try to be wise enough to learn from them and collect the knowledge without having to go through more mistakes in my own patterns of consumerism. So that's all I have for today's video. It happened again, but I didn't buy anything, and I really feel a new sense of strength going forward that I will not fail my no-buy, which for me represents a major turning of the corner, because up until the month of May, indeed, I failed my no-buy in April, I had felt like I was at a precarious point most of the time where I might slip up and buy something. And now I don't feel that anymore. And I'm sorry that I can't be even more helpful in articulating what exactly happened, but I hope this video helped kind of explain maybe some of the factors that just happened upon my life, maybe at the right place at the right time, and enabled me to see things in a new way. And who knows, maybe some of my experiences will help some of you in giving you a perspective that might help you in your own journey. Anyway, I'm gonna go now. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.